Hi, welcome to the Taxonomy Masterclass. My name is Rasa Raoufi, procurement practitioner and co-founder of Mitra AI. Today, I will walk you through some of the proven practices in building and improving procurement taxonomy as a unified language for both internal and external stakeholders. Why having a purposeful taxonomy actually matters. Spend taxonomy is the DNA of the procurement organization and the lens of the category owners, both toward the outside world as well as a language to communicate effectively with stakeholders internally. Think of a simple examples, category boxes and category corrugated boxes. Obviously, corrugated boxes tells much more about the product and its specifications, so it's a better naming convention for both external and internal stakeholders. What if you don't have the right taxonomy in use? First and foremost, this results in an inaccurate and poor visibility. We all remember how we felt when in a session reporting to a leadership or our key stakeholders, someone has corrected us in front of everybody else. And that's something we don't wish to happen even to our enemy. In this overwhelming world, without the right visibility, taking the right decision constantly becomes impossible. So how we usually try to compensate for it? It's consensus. We try to get everyone's confirming the decision. Or we take the shortcut and taking a risk of making a wrong decision impacting the business. An obvious one. Think about an example of corrugated boxes. If we call them boxes, but we mean corrugated, it's going to be very difficult to do any meaningful benchmarking. It doesn't even matter if we have external market data available to us, as we won't be able to benefit from it. Last but not the least, the result of all these shortcomings are trapped value in our organizations and lots of inefficiency and frustration. But this doesn't need to be the case. So what good looks like? Here are key characteristics when it comes to best practice taxonomy management. Your taxonomy should be market specific or supply source driven, not process or solely isolated within your internal requirement. This is the biggest pitfall we see in many organizations, where the business process or finance cost structure has polluted the spend hierarchy. Your taxonomy should be MECE. This stands for mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. This is the second biggest pitfall and a very difficult one. Overlaps and inconsistency in granularity are biggest enemies for any taxonomy. We're going to talk more about building a MECE hierarchy in the remaining of this masterclass. Obviously, you want your internal stakeholders to fully comprehend the taxonomies, so aligning as well as orchestrating and educating internal stakeholders on requirements should be a focus area. No one can do this job better than a category owner. You're bridging both internal and external world. Taxonomy definitions and a scope should have version documents with clear ownership and governance. Remember, taxonomy is a live being and will go through changes because your organization's products and services, as well as your supplier base offerings, will go through a change. Think about additive manufacturing or 3D printing 10 years ago. None of these were part of any taxonomy. I'm sure you can think of more examples. What is a key preparation to start evaluating or crafting your taxonomy? First, look into some best practices. This could be some of more standard schemes like UNSPSC or E-Class, or even some of more mature organizations in your industry. Use this as inspiration and be aware that you might need a totally different structure. Identify your key stakeholders and create an intake with them to learn more about both their requirements for the business as well as their market intelligence. Of course, this could be a group of stakeholders. For example, HR team who are working with recruitment agencies, or R&D group working on their next product line, or even marketing group working with advertising agencies. The goal here is to have a champion within your stakeholder group and a category you own to develop and establish a strong language, the spend taxonomy. Based on these best practices and initial intake from your stakeholders, as well as spend size and impact to the business, identify some of the outliers that are not aligned with best practices. For example, let's take the corrugated box example or an IT services where currently are not represented the way they should. Keep these outliers as we define the next steps. After initial preparations, now we want to go through a three-step approach to craft or improve the selected group of categories or subcategories. Within this three-step framework, first we're going to be focusing on defining and redefining each category and its scope. Then we're going to be testing these definitions and the scope together with our stakeholders and using a real transactional data from our spend. And then we're going to be taking all of the learnings and feedbacks into a governed process to make sure that we maintain those and keep all feedbacks applied within one source of truth. For definitions and the scopes, try to use a repository to maintain all definitions, the scopes, and examples together as one source of truth. This could be as simple as a Word document which is versioned and maintained. The goal in this step is to gain full alignment through sharing definitions and a scope with all key stakeholders and receive and apply feedbacks when it makes sense. However, it doesn't end here. Reflecting the feedback into the repository and making sure everyone is informed is a must. At the end, this is a change management. When crafting a taxonomy, the trick is to build and complete one level before moving into the next level to ensure granularity, consistency, and avoiding any overlap. Categories can always go through a change. So one category can turn into two, or two of them can be consolidated into one, or even move under a different subcategory, or even get deleted. You should have an easy and controlled way to handle all these operations. To illustrate the first step of this framework, we're going to show you how we're handling some of these operations in our platform. In this example, we're looking into packaging and box categories and subcategories, and we see three subcategories. Maybe we would want to be, as part of these feedbacks, be adding one additional subcategory. Here, for example, this could be box and paper category that we are adding. Now at the level 4, we are having 4 subcategories for boxes. Due to the feedbacks and number of suppliers and transactions and spend, we might want to be consolidating the metal as well as the plastic box categories together. So the users are able to basically provide these feedbacks and submit those feedbacks through the platform. And we're looking into this example a little bit more, we can see we have also a packaging labels. We might decide that this should be moving into, as a subcategory, into boxes. So we can select this subcategory and then move them as part of box. Now we have done all of the operations. We've done adding, removing, and merging, and we just simply sending these feedbacks through an approval to our super user to be able to review these feedbacks and apply them if all aligns with expectations and previous discussions. Step 2, where rubber meets the road. In this step, we want to test your refined part of taxonomy with a sample of your spend data. This needs to be done together with the identified stakeholder group. This exercise will help to further refine the proposed hierarchy as well as their definition and scope. Make sure to establish a governance and maintenance around this process. Who are responsible and at which cadence to review and provide feedbacks? How these feedbacks are being collected from the business for reviews? How are the current changes being embedded in all source systems? What kind of checks are in place? And what will be the execution lead times? These are key aspects to be testing and refining together with the full stakeholder group. Let's look into an example from step 2 that we talked about. Here we have a look into one of the categories of subcategories that we have refined together with our group of stakeholders, and we want to go back and test this with some of the spend transactions within our organizations. So we can look into all the categories. We can be selecting the category or subcategory that we have been working together with the team, and let the team actually review and provide feedback. Can they use the defined taxonomy to allocate a spend to it as an example? Or is that something that is not possible? If that's not the case, the team can go back easily into a taxonomy builder and provide their feedback directly. this aligns the taxonomy definitions and the transactions within the company all together with our market-driven approach. Congratulations! You not only refine your taxonomy, but now you have all of your key stakeholders aligned with it as well. Now you need to ensure all this work won't become a history. You need to keep it alive. First step is to ensure you have a clear ownership for the taxonomy across categories you're responsible for. Next to that, also ensure that data owners are identified. These could be people who generate POs as well as suppliers for their invoices. Both categories mentioned have significant impact on the execution of taxonomies. Next is to establish a cadence with key stakeholders to review and collect feedback constantly. So if they notice something or want to communicate a change, they know how and when to do it. Last but not least, ensure that the updates are documented, communicated, and executed across all teams, sources, and reporting systems. These are some key lessons learned for adoption of taxonomies. First, communicate in fixed cadence so all stakeholders, internal or external, are constantly involved and informed about changes. Give them opportunity to provide feedbacks and use the taxonomy in their other related processes. Ensure there is only one source of truth with a control mechanism for taxonomy feedbacks and changes. Having multiple sources of repositories only creates confusion, unnecessary complexities, and disengagements. Last but not least, on the execution, try to automate tasks as much as possible. As we all know, these can be very tedious and initially seen as low value add, although significantly impacting you and your team's performance as discussed earlier. Thank you for investing this time. I hope you enjoyed, learned something new, and can use that as a next step to become a go-to person within your organization, especially when we're talking about this topic. Feel free to book your one-on-one session so we can help you and give you advices to benchmark your current taxonomy or download our ebook to have all this material available to you.